Well, Australia's often dubbed the lucky country, but exactly where you live can help determine just how lucky you are. That's according to a study of 500 local government areas on a whole range of criteria, including housing, health, work-life balance and the environment. SGS Economics and Planning Senior Associate Michellle Tjondro has been crunching the numbers and she joins us now from Sydney. Good morning to you. Talk us through these figures. Well, first of all, why do this? Why have a look at more than 500 of these local government areas to try and come up with what looks like a bit of a scorecard?
Good morning, Lisa. Thanks for having me. So the SGS Cities and Regions Wellbeing Index is a spatial tool for understanding the impacts of public policy over time. And what we're really interested in is understanding why it is that community wellbeing outcomes differ from neighbourhood to neighbourhood and between our cities and regions. So we wanted to fill a research gap in that respect to provide the data and evidence that will help build better public policy and investments to improve the quality of lives of every Australian.
We're going to go into some of the details because we've got some graphics, but before we do that, so we can share that with our viewers, I just want to get a broad sense from you what makes a top tier local government area? What are the kind of main areas?
Yeah, so, well, what makes a good life is so unique to every individual. And so in that sense, there's no magic formula that guarantees a higher wellbeing in our cities and regions. But in understanding the research and the data, what we did find was some common trends. So higher wellbeing areas tended to perform better on multiple wellbeing indicators. So these were things like economic prosperity or economic wellbeing, health outcomes, and also income and wealth, and many others. And so, yeah.
Let's look at housing then, and we'll bring up the graphic where we can see which of the places are high performing and which are low performing. A lot of the high performing places look like they're in regional New South Wales.
Yeah, so that is correct. What we saw nationally as well is that regional areas tended to perform better on the housing dimension of the framework compared to their capital city counterparts. And one of the most significant drivers of that is the fact that in urban areas, rental affordability is so low, and that's something we've really been, aware of for quite some time now.
Okay, let's take a look at the next one, and it's community, work-life balance, equality. Talk us through those.
Yeah, so this year we introduced for the first time a gender pay gap indicator. Gender gaps, it's quite topical at the moment, but it hasn't been front of mind for many in society now. We often treat it as an issue that affects women only rather than whole of society. And what we found through our index was that some of the largest gender pay gaps were in rural local government areas right around Australia. And when we delved deeper into the data to understand why that was so, which locations were most affected, what we noticed was that in rural mining communities in Western Australia, in regional Queensland, those were having gender pay gaps in the order of more than $400 or $500 per week. Yeah.
Let's have a look at environment. This is our last graphic here to take a look at and see what were you looking at with environment?
Yeah, so our environmental dimension comprises two indicators. One is the proportion of protected land or national reserve, and the other is an environmental hazards risk index. What we found at a national level was that regional areas on average performed better on their environmental indicator compared to metropolitan areas, and that was largely due to how much open space or natural reserve there is in regional areas. In the other indicator, which was natural hazards risk, we saw that the results are more comparable between metropolitan and regional areas, and that is simply because climate change doesn't discriminate. So, in New South Wales where I live, we've had recent flooding events in Lismore, Greater Sydney, and also the coastal effects of climate change.
Yeah, all interesting stuff. There's a big piece on ABC Online, actually, if people want to have a closer look at it and dive into these figures, work out which states might have come out on top. Michellle, thanks for taking us through all the numbers.
Thanks, Lisa.